Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on today's webinar, Securing Sensitive IP and Trade Secrets when Working with Remote Employees and Partners. My name is Norv Leong. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing here at NextLabs. And before we get started, just wanted to get a couple housekeeping items out of the way. First off, all the lines have been muted, but feel free to submit questions via the Q&A box that you see on your screen. We've actually set aside some time to answer these questions at the tail end of the webinar. Secondly, the webinar is being recorded, so we'll send you a link to the recording by the end of the week. With that, I'm just going to jump off to the next slide here. Just a little sneak peek at what Jim and I will be covering today. Kick things off with a look at the new normal that everybody is now familiar with. Talk about some of the key challenges that companies are facing as employees like me and Jim as we work from home. That's going to segue into the focus of the webinar. We're going to do a demo of SkyDRM, which is a digital rights management service that alleviates many of the pains associated with protecting data in these work-from-home scenarios. So like I said, we set aside some time to answer questions at the tail end of the webinar. So onward we go. For those of you that are unfamiliar with NextLabs, we were founded about 15 years ago here in Silicon Valley. And we've since expanded our offices to include locations in Asia and Europe. Customer list is a veritable who's who of the Fortune 500, spanning a number of different industries, especially aerospace and defense, manufacturing, financial services, pharma, among a couple others. We've built a strong ecosystem of partners that range from SAP, Siemens, to Microsoft, all the way to the large global systems integrators like Deloitte, Accenture, and Infosys. As you can see on the screen, we've also partnered with organizations like NIST that help establish the standards for technologies like Dynamic Authorization and attribute-based access control. So unless you've been, dwelling deep in a cave, everybody's aware of the reality that we're now living in these past couple months. This new normal we're in that the pandemic has created. We're working from home, doing Zoom meetings, trying to stay as productive as possible, while the kids and dogs are running amok in the background. However, from a security, we wanted to talk a couple use cases because this will set the stage for Jim's part of the webinar. So, we're going to talk about some of the common use cases that all of us probably on this call are used to seeing. Many large organizations, globally distributed, engineers spread out all over the globe. They often collaborate on projects, sending documents back and forth to one another. Similarly, you got industries that have very complex supply chains. And for those of you that joined our call just a couple minutes early, you probably heard me and Jim talking about the breaking down of our supply chains when it comes to, Costco and flower shops, for instance. And in the demo that Jim's going to go over, we're going to look at electric cars as an example. So lots of planning, designing, manufacturing has to happen before a car can roll off the assembly line. The engine might come from one manufacturer, tires from another, and software from yet another vendor. So each of these suppliers, they need to collaborate with one another, but likely don't need access to every single document related to the production of the car. And then finally, another common use case are joint development projects. You need to only look at this current pandemic to see how the public and private sectors are working together to find vaccines for COVID-19. I've heard there's about a couple dozen, a couple hundred, projects in place to try to find a vaccine for this virus. So that brings us to SkyDRM. It's a digital rights management service that enables the secure sharing of data, no matter where that data sits or goes. Purpose-built for the cloud, easy to use, and enables organizations to share files with peace of mind. So from a feature standpoint, the service offers persistent protection of files, which allows you to share and control your files no matter where they go or who they're sent to. This is especially important for multi-company projects whereby different organizations are accessing and collaborating on the same files. You can even apply rights on specific files as those files are reshared down the line from person to person. And all of these activities are auditable for compliance purposes. So SkyDRM, it supports a huge number of common file types natively, including all the popular Office ones, PDFs, 2D and 3D CAD files, source code even. So the service allows for the viewing of content from any device, such as a browser, mobile app, or desktop. So without further ado, I'll pass the baton to my esteemed colleague, Jim Conrad, who will walk you through a demo of SkyDRM that's going to help bring everything that I've been talking about, bring it to much fruition for you guys to visualize. So Jim, it's all you.
All right, thank you. Everybody let me know when you can see my screen.
Yep, you can see it.
All right, so welcome everybody. Jim Conrad, I'm a senior sales engineer at NextLab, working with Norv and the sales folks and helping people like yourselves that are on this webinar try to tackle the problems, as Norv mentioned, that we have going on these days. So in this demonstration, what I want to show here is something along what we're calling a project called codename Blade Runner. And as Norv alluded to, it's an electric car that's being designed, and you have 4 different players that are involved within this project. So you have Jack, who's a project manager working for the main company for the car manufacturer of Morphus. Marcy's the head of design, works for a company called Image, and it's the design firm. Greg is a technical account manager working for Shock G, and he's a supplier for one of the parts for this electric car, in this case the batteries. And then Ivan, who's a new employee for his company, Slingers, is now head of software development. And at this point, we'll see within the demo, we're not sure if Ivan's going to be joining this project yet. But the whole idea is to have different people from different areas or different organizations that are still working on a common project, in this case, the electric car, be able to come together and collaborate on information that each of these individuals might need to see. So it might be a case where we have a particular file that someone needs to see that 2 others do not, or may not pertain to them. So the whole idea is to be able to do the collaboration securely, but yet let them still do what they need to with their jobs based on the information that they do need to share. And now more and more, with the way things have been going with us working from home, a lot of these employees that used to be part-time at the office and sometimes at home, if they're home full-time now, a lot of what they used to do in the office now becomes a full-time thing they need to do from home. So this is where SkyDRM and the power behind being able to securely collaborate with these files and knowing that the people are seeing what they should, being able to audit that information is paramount, and keeping everything secure along the path of this project. So we're going to start off with SkyDRM. So here's Jack, who, as we said, is our project manager. And Jack's going to log into SkyDRM. Jack is using an internal Active Directory as his login credentials. So we're using that information. He's presented with the main screen within SkyDRM. As you can see, he's already created a project called Blade Runner. He's the only user. There's no files that are listed at this particular juncture. So when he opens up the screen, you'll see there's no files. He hasn't invited anybody yet. The main thing he's going to do first is, being the project lead, he's going to go in and actually create policies. So we have different levels of policies that can be created depending on the needs of an organization. So we have domain level policies, we have project level, and user based. So in this case, he's going to create, or has created, a set of policies within this project called Blade Runner, and given its specific criteria. So in this case, Greg can only view general and classified documents. It's set up very easily to separate it out and then give the protection or digital rights that that particular user will have based on those particular files. Once we get out of that, we can now see that there's a second policy which isn't deployed for Ivan, because as I mentioned, we don't know if he's going to join this project yet. And then the next group is Jack and Marcy, who will have full control over any of the different classifications on the files and be able to do anything within the project for those particular files. So we basically separate them out using their company as one of the key things from the attributes that we look at of a user for this particular project. So at this point, Jack has created his policies. Now he's going to upload a set of documents to start or kick the project off before he invites his users. So here he goes out to his local drive to load up some files that he has saved within his Blade Runner project folder. These could easily come from Box, OneDrive, so on and so forth, if you want to add that as a repository. Here we can pick a classification, in this case general, for this general info doc, and that document is now created. And as you'll see, it has a .nxl extension, which means it's now been encrypted. Again, he can go out, do the same type of process for another document. In this case, I wanted to show here that a document can be set up to expire. So you may have rights to a file, but it may also have a validation period. So in this case here, we're going to use a user-defined policy, in which case he's going to pick a particular date that he wants this to expire on. So in this case, I set this document up to expire as of yesterday. So there's our date range. If somebody was to get in prior to this, they would see it expired yesterday and they wouldn't be able to access it. And then lastly, he's going to set out, and we'll show here that we can put in a different type of document. In this case, instead of a docx, we're going to put a PDF document out there as well. Again, classify that, put a specific classification on here. In this case, we're going to set it up as a general classification and upload that file as well. So Jack has now added his 3 files that he wants to start off with. He feels this is the pertinent information for the group that he's going to invite for this project. The policies have been created, the documents have been uploaded, and now Jack's going to take a look at one of these documents just to see first off that it'll run, the content shows up, and he can view the information. So he's happy with the fact that he can now go in, take a look at the different documents. In this case, he looked at the PDF, and now he looked at the Word doc, and he was able to access the documents. And if you go out here and look at the one that I put out there for the expiration, you'll see that it has that validation date of May 5th on it. So you'll see what the user rights are for that, as well as the validation for that document. Now we're back at the main screen here, and now at this point, Jack's ready to invite individuals to join the project. So as I mentioned from early on, we have Marcy, Greg, and possibly Ivan. Since he is the host for this particular project, he's going to go out and invite these users to join. So in this case, he'll add their emails in, send them out a request, and ask them if they want to participate within this project. So here he'll add in Marcy. As well as Greg. Forgive my typing, I'm not that fast of an individual with typing. And then he'll put an invitation message out there so they'll know what this pertains to when they receive the message. Please join us in working on the Blade Runner project. And he sends out the invite. So now we have 2 pending users, Greg and Marcy, on his screen, and you can see that the invitation was successfully sent out by Greg. So now we'll go to another session, and at this point we're going to show Marcy, and Marcy will have received that invitation and now log in. Again, she's going to be logging in using her Active Directory credentials. That's why she's logging in on the lower half as opposed to using an email address. She had prior to this been on other projects. So once you're in SkyDRM and have been on other projects, you're already a registered user within it. So in this case, it's just a matter of accepting the invitation, which shows up here from Jack, to now join this project. So she doesn't need to go through registration for each project that she might have worked on. It's a one-time thing, and now she's able to get into this particular project that she's going to be working on now. So she'll accept and then be able to go to the project itself. At this point, she sees Jack and herself are there as members of this particular project. The next person that will log in is Greg. As we said, we had Marcy and Greg both invited. Greg, again, had been on a prior project, so again, he's using the internal credentials that were set up for him. And we'll go through the same step here where Greg will log in. Again, he'll see Jack's invitation to join the Blade Runner project. He'll accept. And then be able to go to that project. So now, Greg being on, now sees Marcy and Jack have both joined. And now going back, and he could see exactly when they joined and how long ago they joined. So he realizes this was just done all recently. Marcy now goes back, does a refresh of her screen, and she sees that there's files out there, but she already has a file that she wants Jack to take a look at. That's a proprietary file. So in this case, she puts a classification of secret on it so that only somebody like Jack, who has the rights to it, in this case with an IP classification of secret, can actually look at this particular document. So she feels this is going to be pertinent information needed for this project. In this case, we see Greg, who refreshes his screen. He looks at that document and sees he has no rights to it, but he still tries to log into it anyway. In this case, he's not authorized to view that particular document. So even though he's part of this project, that's a document that is not to be seen by him as an outside supplier, in this case of batteries. In the case of Jack, she wants Jack to be able to see that document. Jack now gets a request from Marcy to upload a CAD document for Greg to take a look at, because Greg has asked to take a look at the size of the vehicle to come up with what they're going to need to create for the batteries that are going to fit the tray within the electric car itself. So here he uploads the information. We're now on Greg's screen. Greg does a refresh because Jack told him that he just put a newer version of that document out there, and you can see a moment ago it was updated. And now Greg can go out and take a look at that particular document. And in this case, the SkyDRM viewer will bring the document up. Now, even though Greg needs to look at this information, he doesn't have any rights to do anything with this file except view it. So here within the SkyDRM viewer, he can see all the different angles and sides, top, bottom, front, back of the car for what he'll need to do as far as understanding where these batteries are going to be placed. But if you look on top, everything's grayed out for being able to print or save it or download or extract it. So in this case, it's for a reference diagram only for him to look at, and then they can talk about and discuss based on the diagram that he's been sent. Now we're back at Jack's screen. Jack now sees that all the members are active, but at this point, Marcy has sent out an invite or a file to share with Ivan, and now she's asked Jack to invite Ivan to join this project. In this case, he's sending this invite out to Ivan on his Gmail account. So Ivan is a new employee, as I mentioned from the beginning. In this case, Ivan, who will not be part of their internal Active Directory, will register using his Gmail account. So in this case, when he receives in Gmail his project invitation, he also sees Marcy's shared invitation or shared email of the documents you want to show him. So here he can go out and join the project based on this email that was sent to him. And he has two choices. He could either log in if he already had the account, or in this case, he's going to sign up since he's a new employee within the engineering department. So he'll sign up and join. So he'll put in the information that he needs here to create the account within SkyDRM. He'll hit create. He'll go back to his email, refresh that, and he should have another email that was sent to him basically saying that his account has now been activated. And once he clicks on there, he can now click the actual activation button when he gets into the SkyDRM screen. And now Ivan can sign on to SkyDRM to join them in the Blade Runner project. So we'll put in his password that he set up. And now he accesses the Blade Runner project. And we'll see the other files. And again, different policies that are created will allow him to see or not see certain things, or be able to view or download information. In this case, he goes out to the MySpace area, which is where Marcy had her file that she wanted to share with him, and that was a file that was outside of the project that she just happened to have a copy of that she wanted him to take a preliminary look at. He can look at the rights and see it's view only. So in this case, he can go out, take a look at this particular document that she shared with him, and just view the contents within that file. And again, you can see from the upper left, everything's grayed out. You can only view it at that particular juncture. If we go back to Jack's screen, if he does a refresh, he'll now see, without having to check his email, that Ivan is now part of the project team, so he knows that he's accepted and he's now an active user within the group. If we go back to Marcy, she's going to go to the shared files area where she sent the information off to Ivan, and she wants to see what the status is of that file, so she can look at the file view activity and see that where she protected it and shared it, and she can also see that Ivan went out twice and viewed it within a couple of minute period of time, just to see if there was anything that he missed on the first time he was looking at it. So she knows that that file's been shared and he's actually viewed it. So in this case, we have that information. And lastly, this is a iPhone where if you have the SkyDRM Pro app, a user can log on here. So in this case, this user, John Tyler, can actually log on. This is a different user that will be working on a different project, but similar format to what we just looked at. And in this case, he'll log in, he'll see his demo project, and be able to go in there and look at any of the files. All, in this case, particular PDF he wants to view is watermarked, and so he can view it and be able to see that information. And that concludes our demo. I'll pass it on back to you, Norv.
Thanks, Jim. Good stuff. Yep, let me flip the presentation back on here that we had before. And I think we'll take those questions. Pause here, give you guys a chance to ask your questions via the box while I scroll to the appropriate screen. I think we might have lost our, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Let's see. In the meantime, let's see. You want to talk about, identities in AD, Jim? So, do you have to have all your outside suppliers' identities in the AD in order for them to use SkyDRM and collaborate with people that might not necessarily be from their company?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Norvin, and the answer is no, you do not. As I showed in my example, we had a couple different ways of getting in through AD in my example, as well as using the Google Gmail account. We can also support SAML, other LDAPs, Facebook, as an IDP. So users can get enrolled multiple different ways to get into SkyDRM. Good question.
Okay. How about can you change or control the access rights of a protected file after it's been distributed or sent out?
Yes, you can, because since the policies are dynamic, once a policy is updated, when someone tries to view that policy, that rule is then taken into effect. So if the person at one point could be able to say edit it and then it's changed to only view, then that update will only allow them to view that file.
Okay, and then I know a question that we oftentimes get is if a document's deleted, where are the audit log files for that file, and how long does a log file, how long is it made available? Will it be available even after deletion?
Yes, the file will no longer be available, but the audit trail will be there, and the reason being that in order to have audit, or I should say security compliance, you have to have an audit trail for X period of time, whatever that might be, that you would have to keep the information. And because of the way the infrastructure is set up within the product, all of that information is captured and kept if an audit was needed for looking at how different documents were accessed by different individuals.
Okay, good. Excellent. Don't see any other questions from the audience, but as you guys can see on your screen, if you're interested in getting some more information on what we just demoed today, feel free to check out the links that you see on the screen or shoot us an email and somebody will get back to you right away.
One thing to mention,
as I said, this was being recorded. I'm sorry, what, Jim?
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing to just quick mention on that last screen you showed. If anybody's interested in taking a look at what I showed today, you can register for free at skydrm.com. and that will give you the ability to go in and actually try the product out and get a feel for what it will do for you.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, so you guys are free to just do a test drive on your own and just play around with the service. You'll find that it's a pretty powerful vehicle for protecting your documents. And with that, that brings us to the end of the webinar. So as I mentioned at the start, we'll be sending you a link to the recording. So if you didn't catch something the first time around, you can always replay the webinar at your convenience. And as Jim mentioned, should you have any additional questions or need further clarification on anything, just shoot us a note and we'll get back to you right quick. So thanks again, everybody, and stay safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Crazy times we're living in.